28M, my wife, 29, F, is upset with me being rude to her sister/mother who are constantly bickering with me. My wife's family dynamic is basically this. Her dad works a lot, cheats a lot, or at least as much as he can, and is pretty much checked out from all the women in his family. I would say I see him maybe once or twice a year. My wife's mother and sister are probably the most argumentative, drama-stirring people I've ever met. My wife was the younger sister, and she had always sort of been their target for bullying or bossing around and all that. So, when I came in and married her and she moved out, her sister and her child, and parents still live together, they were not very happy with her or me. They pretty openly hate me. Just for a few examples, once my sister-in-law has threatened to lie to her mother/my wife about me yelling at her daughter and making her cry when I was babysitting. I told her that I didn't do that, and she said yeah, but they're gonna believe me. They've known me 30 years and you for 5. My mill has constantly complained about how I raise my kid, how I am not handy enough around the house, how I'm lazy, etc. She has said to my face that my wife's past boyfriend was better than me, etc. So, I give this backstory to sort of show that these are bad relationships that aren't going to be talked over and repaired. These two women are pretty awful and they hate me and I hate them. So I basically just ghost them now as much as possible, but because Mill is super active in our lives through our grandkid, and Sil is active because my daughter and her daughter play together often, it ends up that they are both often at my house or I am often at theirs. My attitude towards the whole thing is just an attempt to limit contact as much as possible. If my wife were to die tomorrow, my children and I would never see or speak to these people again. But of course my wife wants her mother and sister around, so that's not an option. When we are all together I am pretty rude I guess. I don't talk or just say K or something like that if addressed. I leave the room the whole time they are over or look at my phone the whole time. This upsets my wife and she says I'm always making the situation worse and not trying to be like a family. So our visits usually end up with my wife mad at me and giving me the silent treatment for 12 to 48 hours. I feel that I can't honestly interact with them without getting upset and arguing. They will literally just shit talk me right in front of my face, so it's not as easy as just sitting there and smiling through BS small talk. So, I don't really know how to handle this situation. I either just refuse to be around them and ghost hard, or I argue, or I just be rude and try my best to ignore them. But all of these end with my wife upset with me, so I'm at a loss for what I should actually be doing here. Too long didn't read. Mill/Sil don't like me. I try to ghost them or ignore them as much as possible. My wife gets mad at me for not acting like a family. You and your wife need to negotiate a new way of dealing with her family. You need to agree on boundaries and how you will enforce those boundaries as a team. Find a therapist who can teach you both how to do this. Your wife may not realize that her sister and mother aren't acting like a family either. She grew up with this, so at some level she thinks that's what families are like. I come from a family similar to your wife. I had no idea that wasn't what everyone experienced and in fact spent years trying to be a good daughter because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. I never put down a boundary. I never asked for what I wanted. I was told that family was important and internalized that to mean that family was more important than my self-worth. What changed things for me was therapy. Someone who was neutral and trained and could help me. Get your wife into therapy. Even if you cut off her family, she still will have some shit to work through. Tell her nicely, give her room to push back, but be firm. Don't act like her family, don't be pushy or snarky. Be loving, kind, and present. If she's anything like me, she will need convincing that she has had a bad childhood. I got a diagnosis of complex PTSD and it's need fucking hard, but I'm going through it and coming out better on the other side. I refuse to expose our children and myself to this toxicity, and I have to wonder about how much you actually care about us to continue to be around people who have made it clear that they hate me and against whom you do not stand up for our marriage. If we do not get into couples counseling immediately to deal with this problem, I will have to reconsider my position in your life. Marriage counseling. Your wife would probably benefit from an outside party who can help her see that A. Constantly exposing you, and your child, who will grow to understand what they hear, to their verbal abuse is not a reasonable expectation, and B. The silent treatment isn't an acceptable way to deal with her displeasure. You two need to come to an agreement on how you're going to deal with this as a team. Right now, it sounds like your wife is locked into her peacekeeping role within her family. Marriage counseling might help recast this as a problem she needs to solve for her family. Have you asked your wife why she hasn't solved this problem yet? It's her bailiwick. Why is this still going on after all this time? Couples counseling might be a great way to work through what you're owed as a human being and as a husband. Why are any of these people still allowed in your home when they disrespect you so openly? Make this your wife's problem and let her know you're willing to separate if it isn't resolved. Should I, 30F, believe he, 33 meters, will change this time? My boyfriend and I have been together for 10 years and I feel we are still in the same place we started. There has been no growth in our relationship and we have done nothing to build our future. Backstory: it wasn't always like this. In the beginning we had goals and dreams, but somewhere along the line things got derailed. My boyfriend's depression and anxiety got the best of him about 5 years ago and he has been losing the battle ever since. Even though he has been on medication, he lost all motivation and dreams seem to out of reach for him. He has been unemployed for the most part of this time and I have been the sole provider. He had a job or two in between but never stuck with them too long as it would just get too hard for him to deal with. We are living paycheck to paycheck and raking up credit card debt. We don't have money to do anything, go out anywhere, splurge on clothes or things for ourselves. This just adds to a life of depression, for myself included, because I am dealing with my own issues. Over the years I have made attempts to help him but it never seems to get us anywhere. Most of the time I find it hard to talk to him about our situation. He tells me I don't understand what life is like for him with his mental illness. I do understand what he feels is very real. I understand that he has a real disorder and it has real effects on his life. I don't think he does enough to take care of it. I don't think the medication he is on is right for him because he is still depressed and anxious, but he doesn't talk to his doctor about changing it. I have suggested therapy in the past but he has only gone twice. I can't seem to figure out a way to get him out of his hole. The issue: my family is planning an annual vacation and my boyfriend will not go again. It will be all expenses paid with our own room and car there. I think he should be in a position to do this with me, but again his depression and anxiety block him. He is embarrassed that he does not have a job. His anxiety level about it is too high. Is nervous to spend time with my family because he doesn't know them but doesn't spend time with them to know them, and is refusing. We got into a huge fight and a lot of mean things were said to each other. After 3 days of not talking I had a breakdown. I called him crying and he coldly brushed me off and that was it. I grabbed the dog and some clothes and I drove across states to go home to my parents. It's been a week and a half and he has agreed to changes. He said he will talk with his doctor and get his meds changed. He will go to and stick to going to therapy. He states in 5 months he should have a job. He also plans on working to be able to come with me to family events in the future. I just don't know if I trust him. I love him very much but I'm scared in a year I will be back on that couch feeling alone and stupid. Should I give it a chance and go back? TL Doctor, my boyfriend's promises to change this time but it has been 10 years and nothing's changed. He wants me back and I don't know if I should go. Move on, op. It's been 10 years. He will not change for you. Even if he magically and miraculously changed, could you let go of your resentment? Don't go back. Don't give him his 495th chance with you and your relationship. If he ever valued / respected / loved you, he could not have watched you struggle all of these years without trying to get better and contributing something. Calculate how much he has costed you, financially, emotionally, opportunities lost, the last decade. He cannot repay you and now wants to give you another IOU. Block him. Get your stuff, figure out your own dreams and needs. 30 is a wonderful age to start over. You say that he wants you back. Do you want him back? My hunch is that you are ready to move on. You know that 10 years is a lot of time to give someone a chance to change, and that yes, most likely you will be in exactly the same place a year from now. I'm also willing to bet that while you love and care about him, that spark is pretty much gone at this point, and it's hard to feel super excited or romantic/sexual feelings about him. 10 years of waiting for someone to chance takes a toll on a relationship. You are not required to stay with him just because he wants it. I guess that is where I am stuck. I don't know if I want him back. Feel like if I did I would have gotten in my car and drove back home already. I haven't felt that spark in a while and am worried I will never be able to feel it again. It's hard to make a judgment with such limited information, but if this has been going on for the better part of 5 years, I find it unlikely that this is the first time you've had this discussion and he has promised to change. This is such a constant on Reddit. It seems that everyone that deals with anxiety or depression uses it as an excuse to be lazy, unmotivated, rude, or an overall shitty person. I understand it. I deal with it. Know that it is different for everyone, but I don't feel like he is even making the slightest attempt to get himself in order. Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe he doesn't want to change? You take care of everything while he hangs out at home with no responsibilities and no job. You work, you stress, you handle the finances, you do all the work. You have a 33-year-old boyfriend that gets to sit on his ass and use his depression and anxiety as an excuse for his laziness. Give him another chance. I bet a year from now you're in the same boat with growing debts and growing resentment. I'd be out of there if I were you. This is not this first time I have found myself in this position or having this argument. This is just the first time I have actually left. I think he understands that this is the last chance. I just don't know if I want to try again. I do have a lot of resentment toward him and don't know if I can ever look at him without worrying that it could all come crashing down again. I don't think he has changed before because I don't think he has ever felt he has had to. He wants you back. What do you want? If it were me, I would want my 10 years back. Given you can't have that, don't give him any more. I dated someone like your boyfriend, thank God not for 10 years. His mental health was always the excuse, and God, I felt like the shittiest person in the world for expecting more from him than just quitting every new job after 10 days and smoking weed and drinking all day. I was always guilted into coddling him, but you know what? His depression wasn't his fault, but it was his problem. He needed to be the one to take action because none of my many attempts to help would ever work without him putting in the effort for himself. And he just wouldn't do that. He might not have been a bad person, but he was a toxic one. Nobody deserves a chance at your own expense. Eventually I left, and it felt amazing. His issues had been this black void just sucking all of my emotional bandwidth, and it felt so much better to be free of it. I'm finally in a healthy relationship now, years later, and I am telling you, you will be kicking yourself for not leaving sooner once you realize what it's like to be in a healthy, supportive partnership and not stuck being someone's bang-maid therapist cheerleader mother ATM. My 28F boyfriend, 38, wants to go travel for a while without me. I'm sorry about this long text. I would very much like to have your honest view on it. My boyfriend, M38, and I, F28, got together around a year ago. I live in Europe. He is originally from New Zealand. Our relationship was quite intense from the beginning. I think in many ways from the moment we met we were very compatible. Then COVID happened. It changed some things for us mentally. His business, located in his home country, didn't go very well, and that also brought up questions whether he wants to continue with that all. After a while he became quite depressed, lacking a sense of direction and purpose, and I guess also feeling quite alone in a different country. I think all stuff that had been there but now due to these circumstances came up. I have been very supportive of him during these times. This would also mean that sometimes I had to put aside what I would have liked or needed in our relationship. In terms of, we don't see each other as much as I would like, and it is sort of seeing day by day how he feels, I guess, if it comes to making plans, which I don't mind. I think there are times in which you give a bit more and times in which you take a bit more. Sometimes I find it hard, but in general we are able to talk about it all quite well. Recently he is starting to feel slightly better. I see he is somewhat happier, less anxious and starting to back home and more active. At this point he talked a few times about how he would like to travel a bit after the corona situation calmed down a bit. Visit a friend in India, see more parts of Europe, since he never really got this chance for leisure or just because he wanted to. Before we got together, he came out of a long and serious relationship in which he sort of lost touch with what he wanted and needed and was giving a lot. He said he would like to do this traveling without me, to experience stuff on his own. That this has nothing to do with how he feels about me or our relationship, and there's also many places he would like to go together. I told him I understood the urge to do something on your own, and I do, but that I did feel a bit hurt. Right now I often find myself quite confused and a bit anxious. We are having a good time together, and until now I never thought about spending a future together with someone. I think he genuinely does love me, yet I don't know how to feel about it all. I don't mind things not being clear, but this feels very unclear. Sometimes he talks about living here, sometimes about living there, sometimes about moving back to his home country together, sometimes there's no us at all. I think he just doesn't know what he wants. I told him I am not bound to my home country, and I would be open to move. Though this would be a step for me anyway, I wouldn't just go anywhere. I would gladly give him time to do stuff on his own and find out what he wants. I really do, because I have been in situations too where I felt I needed time for myself and needed to clear my head. His happiness is important for me, but I am not willing to just hang around endlessly and see how he feels about everything and follow around to where he decides he wants to go. I feel that is not how a relationship works or should work. Besides that, I have been in many situations where I felt I had to fight for my own happiness or where I was no priority. I don't want that anymore. I want to move forward with my life. The times we talked about it, my boyfriend said he loves me, and it does change the way he feels about me and the future he wants with me. That even though stuff is unclear right now, it all will be okay. I don't want to think too much about stuff not working out, because out of experience I know it can work as a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's useless to do. I am quite good of believing my worst thoughts be true while often they are not. But in the back of my mind I am thinking, am I wasting my time? Is he just afraid to say he wants to leave? I would really like to hear thoughts about this situation or people/couples that experienced something similar. I think that would be helpful. Too long didn't read. My boyfriend, who is still struggling currently with mental health, wants to travel on his own and doesn't really seem to know what he wants. I don't know how to feel about it all and if I should worry about our relationship. Update. Also comment here below. He just called me, speaking of the devil, and we had a very good conversation about it. He was shocked I felt like that. He said him sharing his thoughts was him wanting to share stuff with me, and not intentions to do everything. He would like to do a small travel, but also mentioned we would definitely have a plan that we would both be comfortable with, and he wouldn't imagine the future without me. Going away for a while is also to be able to give me, our future family and life, what we need. I said these were genuine worries I had though, and that I need certain certainties and some things to change in future if we are continuing together, and asked him to think about it as we. He agreed, even though he said separating he wouldn't even have to think about.